That moves us to our discussion agenda. Dr. Gary?
Good evening, Dr. Ross, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Office of Operations brings forth for discussion this evening the Community Eligibility Program Resolution, which is commonly referred to as CEP. To guide us in this conversation this evening will be Ms. Shauna Cato, our Coordinator of Student Nutrition, and from the State Department of Education, Ms. Ellen Mason, Interim Director for the Office of Health and Nutrition, and Ms. Chandra Kelly, Education Associate in the Department of Education that works closely with our district. Ms. Cato.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Ross, and members of the board. I come before you again um, to talk about community eligibility provision. Oh. Sometimes the clicker makes me nervous. As you know, federal dollars, and I'm going to say this because it doesn't say this up here, I'm going to say it the right way. Our federal tax dollars do not go to support our program. We do get some state money for our reimbursed. Did I say it backwards? Oh, excuse me. State Department is correcting me. All right, let me back up. So we get state dollars, right?
So we get federal tax dollars, but South Carolina passed a proviso last school year to where they will reimburse the reduced price fee for any reduced students that the families traditionally have paid. So all of your non-CEP schools, the reduced price family portion is now covered by the state. Okay. It's our first state funds in the program, so we're very excited.
Yes. All right. So with that, our schools are responsible for paying, we are responsible, the department, for paying for our supplies, our labor, equipment, repairs, and all administrative costs. And that, like I told you, a couple months ago, that's the money we get in reimbursement. So we use that money to pay for those things. We participate in multiple school meal programs, breakfast, lunch, after school snack, and we also participated in supper program, which is a meal program, but it's not under the Department of Ed. Yeah. So we have 13 schools currently that are under CEP. And those are the same ones we had from last year. So we did not extend. We kept the schools that we pulled in. We pulled in, I think, 3 to 4 schools last year to make that list grow to 13. And so that's where we are still this school year. So there is a criteria that we have to meet, we look at. And so I'm going to pass this to our interim director at the State Department so she can explain it, because it's complicated. It's not 1 + 1, I tell you.
Okay, good evening. I was going to say afternoon. We're well past that. So CEP, the formula for CEP has not changed over the years. It's the number of identified students in a school, so those that receive SNAP, TANF, FTPIR, it receives Medicaid, and students that live in a household with those students, along with foster students, Head Start, and any homeless migrant or runaway kids. So we take that number of kids divided by the enrollment in the school. And to be eligible to participate, the current eligibility percentage is 25%. That dropped at the federal level 23? 20? Yeah, I think so. So the one thing they did not do for us when they dropped that is they did not change the multiplier of how we get reimbursed for meals. So you take the ISP, multiply it times 1.6, and that tells you how much percentage of the meals you get reimbursed at the federal free rate and how much you get reimbursed at the federal paid rate. Anything over 62.5 is 100% free. Roughly a 50% ISP gets you, or 50% ISP gets you 80% of the meals you served reimbursed at the federal free rate, 20% reimbursed at the federal paid rate. So while eligibility stands right now at 25%, it is not financially viable for a district to participate at 25%. You would get vast majority of those meals reimbursed at the federal paid rate, which for lunch this year, I want to say is 50? Did we finally hit 50? Yeah, we finally hit 53 cents. Yeah. So that's what you would get from the federal government for a paid meal. So vast majority of the meals at those schools really below 50 to 40%, sorry, would be at that roughly 50 cents per meal, and the general fund would be on the hook to pay any excessive cost and shortfall that would come from including those schools at the lower ISP percentage. Is it still me, or are you back up? You want me to keep going?
You can
Okay.
talk about the
I
proviso
got it.
while we are here.
So the proviso that we've had in place for a couple of years at the state level, they actually wrote it into law this year that school districts just have to put out, which we did this last year. It's nice to see y'all again. Just have to put out reasons why you were not able to include those schools that were over that 25% threshold but did not sign up to participate in CEP. And for most people, it's going to be a financial reason. Unless the general fund is going to jump in and cover those meals, you cannot do it at those rates. We had hoped to get the 1.6 multiplier increased, but that did not happen at the federal level. Currently, district-wide, you guys are sitting at 39%, which is pretty low. If you were sitting at 50%, I would tell you to do it. I would stand up here and tell you that you would be fine financially, because we've had several school districts do that. 39%, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to stand in front of you that I think and tell you that, because I think the general fund would end up supporting food service at 39%. And again, and Shauna ran some numbers, but it's hard to know where that would hit, because we do know we get more participation typically when all meals are served at no cost to the kids. Unfortunately, though, if you're participating at a very low ISP for CEP, that actually means more money from the general fund would have to come in. So it's almost a double-edged sword. Unfortunately, we get a great benefit for the kids, but we put the general fund on the hook for a lot more funds in the long run, and that's not something that we want to do to you guys. I know no school district is like, yes, we have plenty of general funds. Please take them, use them as you will. So again, from the State Department angle, you guys would definitely have to put in some funds to support that. Again, based on last year's participation, the 5 schools would be roughly $585,000 per year, and honestly, would probably go up. Yeah, that would be your baseline. That would be your bare minimum of the general fund needing to support child nutrition department, and that's just a lot of money. If it was one school, we may have a different conversation, but with 5, that's a lot.
So I'll go back to that. That's additional $585,000. Currently the schools that we have on CEP, we're paying about a little over $400,000. So you're looking at $1 million right there to bring in 5 additional schools. And so that's why we don't just have $1 million sitting around to support. We want to, trust and believe. If they came out and said we can do it, I'm gonna do it, hands down. We go across the board, but it's just not something we can do. So can these 5 schools be added to our existing agreement? And this is why we're here due to this resolution. And basically, due to the financial impact that it will have on our operational budget, at this time, the district is unable to support additional CEP schools. After the State Department reviewed all our numbers, because we worked together to do this, they indicated that our last CEP agreement, which was renewed last school year, our current CEP schools ISP has decreased. And so that's something we look at yearly. Not one time it is done. We evaluate those numbers each year. Resolution for consideration, a review of the financial impact indicates that the addition of 5 CEP schools would not be fiscally sustainable over a 4-year period. And so, do you guys have any questions?
Ms. Huddle?
I'm just curious, and with the schools that were moved to CEP, what has the trend been or the experience been? Do more children take the school-provided lunch? What do we know about what happens
So I
when?
will tell you that at Dutch Fork High School, we feed about 900 kids each day. And I think before that it was about 6, but we have lines standing to the back door. Dr. Gary can tell you, because last year he saw it. So typically, and I've been in other districts and extended CEP, you see the paid students, and they're there. Their moms are like, go, you gotta eat. So the participation, like Ellen mentioned, but those paid students, you see the participation go up. It's surprising. And sometimes you see the free participation go down. And so where do we get our money? With the free participation. And so, yes, we do see an increase.
And I guess the other question is, and I know you probably don't have a number on this, but you guys are in the schools every day. Do we have a lot of students that just don't eat because they don't qualify and they don't bring a lunch?
So I can't speak to that just per se, but you do have students that just don't eat. And it's not just because they don't have money. Some students just don't want to stand in line. And that's the truth. They don't want to stand in those long lines. I speak up about high schools because that's where we have long lines. Elementary and middle schoolers, they want to socialize. We want them to eat, but they want to socialize with their friends and things. So we have to encourage them to come in and eat. High schoolers, if there's a long line, they're typically not going to stand in line, day after day waiting for lunch. And so we do still encourage them, hey, come and eat. Why aren't you eating? I'm going to talk to some administrators this summer about that and asking students why aren't they ever in the line to get lunch? Because we know they need it to carry them through the day, and they say we don't want to deal with the lines.
But take credit for redesigning the Dutch Fork High School line so that we can get more students through.
Yes,
so
sir.
We appreciate that.
It is on my list of things to do to help with that flow. Yes.
Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question related more to the day-to-day. We had a gentleman that asked a question earlier about tossing food. I know that it used to be when you would get these little individual bowls on a tray. I'm talking about the old days. And they'd put your sweet potatoes and your lima beans and things like that. Because it was open, they had to be thrown away. Pre-packaged stuff like granola bars or juice or even fruit like bananas that have not been touched. Do those things, is that a federal issue? Do they have to be tossed, or can you retain those things?
So some of that state, the Department of Agriculture, which is formerly DHEC, it's Department of Ag now. Some things we have to throw away, okay? But single-use items that are wrapped, we don't. So when we see an issue with waste, and we had an issue last year at Dutch Fork Middle, I went over and we talked about ways to not have that, where food is piled up on the table, where kids just getting one item and everything else they want to throw away. The trash cans are full of food. You can do something called a share table. And so we can implement those processes where those items that we can keep, we keep, and we don't throw them in the trash. We don't want to be wasteful. Trust me, I don't like to waste money. I like to hold on to what we got and use it in ways to help our students eat what they would like to eat. We also talk to the students and ask them, why are you doing this? And so that was a situation where it was a little bit of us and it was a little bit of the school, but we worked together to try to, get that down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms.
I
Scott?
just have one question about the funding that you had, the way you listed it. So when I get my tax bill for my home, how much of that money goes to support student nutrition?
So the only state funds that go to student nutrition is that reduced payment that the state is giving. So for Lexridge 5, the only schools that you will get any state funds for child nutrition are the 5 non-CEP schools. Is it 8? Sorry. I thought that said 5. Sorry. The 8 schools that are non-CEP, and it's only for those reduced price kids, which is roughly 30 cents for lunch and 40 cents for breakfast. So however many reduced kids you get, however many meals those eat in a year. I think statewide, we spent like $300,000 statewide.
But those are
on
state funds,
covering
not
that.
local funds.
Those are state funds. That's the only state funds we get. We don't get local funds in this program. We only get federal funds.
Thank you.
So that tax bill, that is not us.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. That moves us to the discussion of board policy BEDGA, board records, which discuss how in the process that we can request information from the district and also how the public can request information. This is something that's kind of been on the waiting list in terms of policies for review. You all received it in your board packet, so I am open to thoughts, concerns, feedback, or suggestions on updates to this policy if anybody has any for discussion.
I'll be happy to say a few words.
Scott?
Yeah, I've just noticed, since I've been on the board, we have a lot of like individual board inquiries that we all are interested in, our specific areas of things.
Right.
And I've become aware of what an ask this can be of the admin and their team. And sometimes it requires significant research. And I feel like we need, first of all, we need to be respectful of that to our admin. But there needs to be a point at which this becomes a board question and not individual questions. Things that are easily receivable that we keep data on, I think is totally fair game. But if it requires the administration to go digging and finding information, I think that should be something that's the will of the board and not so much of the individuals. I don't have any language on proposing to that yet, but I at least wanted to open it up for discussion and see if there are other thoughts on this.
As a comment to that, I do think that that's the hard thing about policy, right? It makes things so firm. But one concern I have is that if there's a request, I'm sorry, of information, maybe let's say we get our draft agenda, like Amy sends it to us, for the meeting, and maybe there's something on there that questions come out of, and let's say the request is time consuming, but the information is relevant to the meeting, how do we determine that we push it off if we need it for that meeting? So what are the circumstances? And does that have to also be outlined in the policy so that if somebody's requesting information that could help them in making some decision on something that we have to vote on, what does that look like? And then my second thing is if we're requesting information that is, I don't know, let's say it's HR related or legal advice, something that would be in executive session, is it on the executive session agenda for us to discuss whether or not we as a whole board want the information? That's also just a question that I'm throwing out, but those are two things that came to my mind as I looked at this policy. Anybody else? Oh, and if we are gonna make changes to it, who drafts that language? Does anybody have answers to that question for me?
Well, I'll just speak to the administration's interpretation of this policy. When it comes to records, these are items that we maintain. So if we maintain it, then it's yours. The question is for items that we don't maintain, which is outside of this policy. We would ask that the board make a decision, and that could be just as tonight. While you took no action, it was very clear from the entire board that you want more information about the vaping. And
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So it is brought to the public hears it. We as an administration knows that that's kind of the will of the board. And so that helps us. It was, we had accusations about misuse of FOIA by having things in executive session. Well, if a lot of things that are not public record are handled outside of public view, then it's hard for us to prioritize the direction we need to go. Each one of the chiefs are directing own divisions with their own to-do lists. So if we are going to move them from something, I think it should be in the light of the whitewash of a public meeting. So that's our thing. If it's a document we have, we do like that opportunity to pull it. Emails, there's one person that pulls emails. He's the same person that's protecting our network. So we ask when we pull that we have time to do that. But if there are reports or information, as we did tonight, the entire board discussed that is the will of the board, while it wasn't a vote, to get more information on vaping and vape prevention. And so that's something we prioritize.
Do we have other thoughts, questions, concerns at the moment? All right, that will move us to our next discussion item. Proposed revisions to board policy, GCB, professional staff contracts and compensation.
Dr. Wicker?
Dr. Wicker, you're up.
This evening, I'm bringing forward 3 policies for discussion, each with proposed revisions. These revisions stem from the Educator Assistance Act, which took effect on July 1st, 2025. The proposed updates are designed to ensure our district is fully aligned with the new requirements while continuing to support our educators and the work they do for our students every day. With that context in mind, I'll begin with the first policy, Policy GCB, Professional Staff Contracts and Compensation. In short, this proposed revision is stating that the written notification of reemployment must include a projected minimum salary schedule for the district for the upcoming school year, as well as an agreement to provide a final salary schedule as soon as practical upon completion of annual state and local budget processes. And the district will also, upon request, provide a teacher with the factors used to determine their pay category on the salary schedule. So those are proposed revisions to policy GCB. I'll pause for questions.
So has the state resolved the issue, and this may also be a Ms. Tucker question, of we don't know we don't know what the step schedule is when they have to sign their contract?
Correct. And so that's a great question, Ms. Huddle. And so we were talking to legal earlier today. What would happen is when our contracts go out, usually they go out sometimes middle April to late April, and they're due back by May 10th. We provide the actual schedule at that time for that particular year. Any changes will need to be actually given back to the employee when those things are put in place, but we would not know ahead of time.
Okay, so we would give them the current schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They would
Yes, ma'am.
sign their renewal.
Yes,
Are they allowed to withdraw it if they don't like the new schedule, or are they still stuck?
No, they would be able to do that if they so chose to. Now, the thing about it, once they sign the contract, it'll be a pending considerable replacement for that particular teacher. So again, I mean, that's where we are right now in
So it
terms
really
of.
hasn't changed anything.
just
I'm not asking you to say that.
I'm bringing forward the new recommendations.
I think there should be something on this that says, we hope to be able to pay you X amount of dollars. I'm just teasing, that's not the guy.
Well, one thing we can say with this proposed revision is that in the right now when our contract goes out, it does not by any means give a particular number, because again, not that being in the contract, but as the schedule changes, we could send the particular schedule out to say, based on your years of experience and based on your education level, this is where you would be. But that would take place based on the current one, and then as anything new comes out, we would then have to go back and provide that to the teacher based on this new proposed policy.
Let me ask you one more question. Back in the olden days, very olden days, when you got your contract, on the second page, you got a copy of your contract, a paper copy, and then on the second page, you got a copy of how much you were being paid that year. You knew exactly. Is the deadline for signing your contracts, I guess that wouldn't be the same as offering a new contract, because if you already signed, you'd know, but there's not an issue with the deadline for contracts and knowing how much they're actually going to get paid with the new steps, right?
No, so the contracts are due back by May 10th. That's by state law. They're due back by May 10th. And so again, at that time, we just provide what the current schedule is, because we would not have gone through the budget process by that time.
Your
So-
board policy has the first reading in May.
So-
We wouldn't pass the budget then.
So we're asking them to sign a contract and they don't know how much money they're going to get.
The intent of the Education Assistance Act was to make sure the teachers knew the next year's budget but it just doesn't align
It
with the
doesn't align.
budgeting process.
Yeah, but it's so much is up in the air though, I
All of
mean,
it's up in the air.
Unless we
mean-
moved our budgeting process back.
We don't get state projections until June, really, if you want to speak to that, Ms. Tucker.
We're at the mercy of the state legislature process, so.
Well, I know that, I think last year when I was down at the State House, when they had Educator Day or whatever it is, that was one of the big discussions was teachers' contracts. Because teachers felt like they were bound and they had no wiggle room, so to speak. And, you know, they were sort of held captive and at the mercy of the district or the state. Because if you signed it and you said, nah, I'm not gonna do this, then you could get in trouble with your certification, so.
And see, goes to a little bit what Mr. Huddle said and Mr. Satterfield, but like, I wonder how many teachers we may lose because we actually might be able to offer them a larger raise than we know. We give them a projection, right, but we don't have that set in stone and so they might see greener pastures, you know.
But what we can say in terms of that is that you know that what you have for this one is not gonna go lower than that. So we definitely know that we're gonna be moving, if that's the case, we'll move up. So, but again, that's how it's written right now.
I guess the good news, Ms. Tucker, has anyone been earlier in passing the budget than May 10th? So we're all in the same boat as I guess.
Say,
what I'm
not that
saying.
I think the earliest readings are in May because you don't typically get the second house projections until late April.
Late April.
Any other questions? Okay, you gonna go ahead and take the second part?
All right, so I'll move on to propose for policy GCI, professional staff development. As we all know, teachers are contracted for 190 days, 180 days for students. Those 10 additional days have now been proposed with 4 of those days must be collegial professional development days. These must address academic achievement standards, teaching techniques, assessments, etc. 2 days must be staff work days. Teachers and instructional assistants must be afforded time that is self-directed and free from assigned meetings. And the last 4 days must be used for teacher planning, academic plans, and parent conferences. So those additional 10 days, again, are outlined as how they must be used.
Any questions?
All right, and then the last one would be policy GCK, professional staff assignments and transfers. And again, in summary, this states that no later than 14 days before students are scheduled to return, teachers must be notified of their tentative assignment for the school year. Once assigned, the teacher shall not be reassigned to work at another location unless the superintendent can demonstrate the need for reassignment. The teacher must be given 5 days in a written notice in advance of the reassignment. So in other words, 14 days, at least 14 days prior to students coming back to school, teachers must be notified of their location. If there's a need based on numbers or change, they must be given at least 5 days' notice before the reassignment takes place. And so again, back to the point with that, with contracts, when contracts come out in May, they have their location listed on the contract, so they know at that time where they're going to be going. But for some reason that needs to change, then we'll need to follow that 5-day process that's outlined in the proposed new policy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question about that. Dr. Ross, do we have that many that are moved last 10 days before school? Mr. Wicker, I'm asking, he's pointing at you, so you got the answer, obviously.
So we're very happy to say that is not something that happens very often with us in terms of a lot of shifting, those last 10 days. As of right now, we're in this 10-day window of kind of looking where our numbers are. So there may be a few shifts that will take place this year just on numbers, but most times that's not the case.
Is it more grade level, like if I'm an elementary certified teacher or early childhood, is it more of that, or is it schools, going from one school to another?
So most times it just depends. I would say probably more schools. I'm going to look back to Mrs. Cohen. It'd be more schools because we find sometimes that some of the subject areas may be a little bit hard to fill or those type things at certain locations. So it may be more of a school than just a grade level.
The reason I ask that is I know that a lot of, you were talking, I think Ms. Cohen was talking about teachers talk, and that's probably the greatest. We probably ought to give them a little stipend if they can pull somebody from another district. But the idea is that they get to know, they're already working this thing in the summer, and they're all excited about working with their friend or their neighbor or all that. So I know that's a bit of an obstacle to get over. But I was just curious if that happens often. I don't remember in my time it really happening. I can't remember any time.
It doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Thank you.
Are they afforded that same time if they change grade levels or internally into a school subject matter?
So that's different, so that does not have the same effect as this right here. So this is if you're changing locations from one to another. Inside of the building, that still remains the same. The principal has the autonomy to make the needed changes inside of the building. But if you're leaving from one location to another, this then comes into play.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Dr. Wicker.
Thank you so much.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? And the motion carries 7-0. Y'all have a good night.